When Dazi first started becoming a platypus, he didn't expect the process to take so long. His resolve hadn't softened. The decision to change from Homo sapien to Orthoneurictus anatomus was one he made again and again against every use of his broad, cumbersome, all too human body. Practically speaking, he was struggling with the beak at this point. The fur and the tail had been easy enough to will into existence, be the change you want to see in the world and all that. The hardest part was trusting the pain as his body lurched into more platypine shapes. He had started small in the beginning, a patch of fur on his lower back and the underside of his left thigh. The oil-slicked pelt had grown considerably since then, and he took pride in the effort and promise of each new follicle. Dazi was a glass half full, skin half covered in fur kind of guy. His older brother, Zane, leaned against their parents' dining room table and wriggled a spoon at his patched face. Now, I'm not saying you're not serious, but remember when you pierced everything and dyed your hair black, and then a month later it was polo shirts and a buzz cut? Dazi adjusted his tail against the wicker chair's unwelcome creaking. This is different. I know it is, I'm sure, well, but if you change your mind, it could be awkward. For you, I mean. Their father kept quiet by stuffing his mouth full of mashed potatoes. He was dripping with buttery drool when his words finally overcame the force of starch. He's got a tail now, for God's sake, Zane. Their mother piled a plate full of fried chicken high as her chin and placed it in front of Dazi. He pushed the plate aside. I need shrimp or worms if there's any. Worms, Zane grimaced. Dazi, see, this is what I mean. Now you want worms? How long is this gonna last, really? You've never eaten a worm in your life. Dazi stared at the fried chicken. How many more family dinners that only sickened the animal he wanted to become? Enough. He was a platypus. It boiled inside him with thousands of insufficient explanations that he was forced to give to everyone, from the grocery store cashier to the wino camped on his block. The smell of chicken grease made his stomach twist. No matter how far you've gotten, no one respects half measures. He smacked fleshy lips together until the sound went from wet to hard, until they clicked and blackened. His teeth wiggled out bloodied gums and clinked against the china. The skin under his nose began to harden. He wanted to cough but couldn't find enough air. Now, son, not at the table! His father wiped the butter from his chin as his brother retched, never one for the sight of blood. Oh, honey, your brother, the tablecloth, his mother wailed. Dazi's tongue flattened and squeezed. Excess taste buds popped out onto his plate. He could breathe again, more fully than ever before. The fallen teeth stacked nicely into a pile beside the fried chicken. Zane raced to the bathroom to brush the bile off his own pearly whites, while their mother got the Clorox wipes and their father moved on to the green beans. Regardless of anyone's reaction, Dazi had a beak now. You should have waited for Julie, his mother murmured, depositing the remaining molars in the trash. He hadn't thought of that. He hadn't thought of Julie at all, and that would make her madder than the beak ever could. Julie was his girlfriend. She was wonderful. Her hair looked like soft mud. Her voice was like river water. She did not want to be a platypus, but she was someone a platypus could love. The night before, tangled together in bed, Julie worried about when the claws would come. It wasn't just the poisonous spurs on the ankles, but more that she liked holding hands. She liked how he could reach the high shelves in the kitchen, but she'd started to buy stools and ladders. They would adjust. The spurs would be better than mace, she told him. They talked about marriage, but he wanted his claws and beak before they went further. She told him she admired his honesty, but he had to include her in the process. No surprises. He tried to meter the changes out logically so people could prepare themselves accordingly. But sometimes the desire to become overwhelmed the desire to be understood. It was a sloppy business, the becoming. He was worried about how his voice would sound to Julie. It would be a new voice, new tongue, new kiss. He'd been thinking too long, resting his chin against the peach suede of the couch in the apartment they shared. His limbs were numb from the effort of stillness. He didn't want to use them anymore. They didn't even feel like his to use. The rumbling inside him did not want to be convenient. It did not want to be slow and casual. His waiting turned into wanting, gnawing out of his doubt, wanting to feel whole. He felt himself shrinking, the arc of his spine cracking like gunshots. Wet coughs from his new mouth bubbled against his soft brown pelt, now fully realized. The room melted, spun, expanded. Space was not as he had grown into it, but as he had always imagined it could be. Hands folded into wrists, inching up his elbows. The flab of his biceps latched into his shoulders, excruciating movements dripping with discarded fat and flesh. The excess humanity sloshed off and stained the peach suede. His fingers stretched out from his shoulder sockets. He concentrated against each familiar fingerprint, replacing them with hooked claws and slick, leathery webs. Dazi couldn't smile, but the reflex remained. Happiness filled the beats of his small, rapid heart. Glee extended from the black webs into his ankles and pushed out 2 spurs filled with venom. Every sound was a new language. The sound of the ice maker straining itself in the fridge became new, worth attention and joy. New ears. Julie's key in the lock, impossible to recognize as the same sound he heard every day. New light from the old bulb in the hallway, her silhouette becoming rigid, her gasp slapping against his fresh ears. Ecstasy. She lifted him up from the stained couch. Her words came too quickly and far too loudly for him to interpret. She plopped him down on a pillow and grabbed some towels while spitting curses at his soft brown head. Dazi panted with exhaustion. His sleepy eyes fluttered against the sounds of scrubbing. She was crying, but less and less as she found her words. She missed him terribly at work, and one of her clients did the funniest thing. They will learn to live like this, better than before, each of them as they always were. They will have to buy a new couch, but the loss is not so great as the gain.